Listen closely, because what I am about to declare may shake your spirit, awaken your faith, and ignite a fire inside your soul that you have never felt before. There are moments in life when heaven suddenly moves. There are seasons when God does not whisper, He speaks like thunder. And tonight, I want you to hear this with trembling reverence in your heart. God is about to drop a bombshell in your life. You have been waiting. You have carried burdens that no one else could see. You have walked through nights when your heart felt heavy, when your mind was restless, when your future seemed hidden behind walls of uncertainty. And in those moments, you may have wondered if God had forgotten you. But hear this truth burning like fire in your spirit. God does not forget His chosen ones. God is never late. God is preparing a moment that will explode into your life with divine purpose. There are times when the human mind cannot predict what God is planning. There are seasons when your circumstances look ordinary, but in the spiritual realm, heaven is moving with unstoppable authority. People may see your present situation and assume that your story is finished, but God is saying something completely different. God is preparing a sudden intervention. God is arranging a divine surprise that will dismantle the limitations surrounding your destiny. Listen carefully. The greatest miracles are not always gradual. Sometimes God moves suddenly, releases breakthroughs that shatter expectations in one moment. When God drops a bombshell, it means heaven interrupts the natural order of your life and replaces it with supernatural design. Your struggle may have lasted long, but God's answer can arrive in a single breath of divine authority. Do not measure God's timing by human standards. Humans move slowly because they depend on visible evidence. But God moves beyond the boundaries of time. God operates in dimensions where impossibility cannot survive. When your situation looks impossible, that is often the exact moment when God prepares His explosive revelation. I want you to understand something deeply tonight. The silence you are experiencing is not abandonment. The silence may be preparation. When God is about to release something powerful, He sometimes builds your character in quietness. The human heart becomes impatient in silence, but God's wisdom works in hidden chambers where human eyes cannot see. Many people are praying for open doors, but they forget that God sometimes opens doors with explosions of grace that no human can explain. There are breakthroughs that arrive so suddenly that people will say, this cannot be natural. That is the signature of God's work. When God moves, He does not need permission from your enemies. He does not need approval from the world systems. God simply declares His will, and reality must obey. Your life is not controlled by the opinions of those who misunderstood you. You're not imprisoned by people who rejected you. Your future is not locked inside the judgment spoken over your name. God writes your story with authority that surpasses human criticism. When God decides to bless someone, no force in existence can cancel that decision. Do not allow your heart to believe that your waiting season is wasted. Waiting in faith is not failure. Waiting in obedience is not defeat. The world teaches you to rush, but God teaches you to grow in preparation. The world measures success by speed, but God measures success by depth of character, purity of heart, and strength of faith. Some of you are standing at the edge of your breakthrough without realizing it. You feel tired, you feel overlooked, you feel like your prayers are echoing inside empty space. But I tell you with spiritual authority, God is working in ways you cannot yet see. The bombshell of God is not always loud at first. Sometimes it begins as a quiet shift in your environment. Suddenly opportunities begin to align. Suddenly doors that were locked begin to tremble. Suddenly people who ignored you start recognizing the grace upon your life. When God prepares a bombshell blessing, He often removes what cannot survive your future. Do not cry over the things that are leaving your life. Sometimes God removes relationships that would weaken your calling. Sometimes God closes paths that were designed to drain your spiritual strength. What you call loss may actually be divine protection. What you call rejection may be God saving you from spiritual destruction. I want you to believe this with absolute conviction. God is not finished writing your destiny. The world may have spoken words against your dreams, but God's declaration is stronger than human opinion. When God speaks over your life, even nature itself listens. There are people listening to me right now who feel stuck in cycles of struggle. You wake up and fight the same battles. You pray and still feel pressure in your chest. You work hard but see little visible reward. Hear me carefully. Your persistence is not invisible to God. Every tear you have hidden is known in heaven. Every silent prayer spoken when no one was watching has been recorded in divine memory. God's bombshell is not only about material blessing. Sometimes God's greatest explosion is spiritual awakening. There are people who are about to experience a sudden transformation in their understanding of purpose. Your heart will change. Your priorities will shift. Your hunger for righteousness will become stronger than your desire for temporary pleasure. When God touches a life deeply, that person begins to see the world differently. You will no longer chase empty recognition. You will no longer measure your value by social approval. You will discover that your true worth comes from being known by God Himself. Do not underestimate the power of a single divine decision. One word from God can change the direction of your entire existence. History is filled with moments where ordinary individuals suddenly became instruments of destiny because God chose them at the right time. Your enemies may think they have delayed your future, but they do not understand the mystery of God's timing. When God releases His bombshell, the years of waiting can be swallowed by one manifestation of glory. The story of your struggle will become testimony material for future generations. You must prepare your spirit for unexpected favor. God does not always announce His blessings through human channels first. Sometimes you will wake up and feel a strange certainty inside your heart. You may not see the physical evidence yet, but your spirit will know that something has changed in the heavenly realm. Faith is not emotional excitement. Faith is spiritual conviction that stands even when the environment contradicts it. When storms speak against your future, faith answers with silent authority. When doubt whispers fear, faith declares God's promise louder than fear. I am speaking to someone who has been fighting discouragement. You have questioned whether your life matters. You have wondered if your efforts are meaningful. Listen to me. God does not create people without purpose. Your existence is not accidental. Your path is not random. Every breath you take is connected to divine intention. There is a bombshell of opportunity waiting to collide with your life. You may think you are far from your breakthrough, but sometimes breakthrough closer than your anxiety allows you to believe. The human mind tends to magnify obstacles, but God's power is infinitely greater than any mountain standing before you. Do not curse your current position. The ground where you stand today may be the launching place for your destiny. Many great lives were built from places that looked insignificant at first. God delights in taking what the world calls weak and turning it into testimony of His glory. Some of you are waiting for financial restoration. Hear this spiritual declaration. God is not limited by economic systems. God can open channels of provision that no human strategy can manufacture. When God decides to bless, resources can appear from unexpected directions. People may call it luck, but you will know it is the hand of God. Your responsibility is not to panic. Your responsibility is to remain faithful while God prepares the explosion of His blessing. Do not abandon prayer when you feel tired. Do not abandon trust when circumstances look dark. The night is often the womb where God's morning is born. There is someone who feels invisible in society. You work honestly, yet recognition passes you by. You serve sincerely, yet appreciation is scarce. I want you to hear this. God sees the hidden worker. God honors the heart that serves without pride. God prepares crowns for those who remain faithful when nobody is applauding. The bombshell of God may arrive as promotion you never expected. It may arrive as restoration of relationships that were broken by misunderstanding. It may arrive as wisdom that suddenly solves problems you have struggled with for years. Do not fear the suddenness of God's work. Human beings fear sudden change because they want to control outcomes. But divine blessing sometimes arrives like lightning, powerful, undeniable, overwhelming, and impossible to stop. You must rise in spiritual confidence. Stop speaking words that reduce your destiny. Stop confessing defeat over your future. Speak life over your calling. Declare that God's purpose for you will stand. Your life is in the hands of a God who specializes in turning darkness into revelation. When the world says end, God can say begin. When people say failure, God can say chosen. When circumstances say no hope, God can say I am preparing something greater. There is a generation waiting for the manifestation of your purpose. Do not hide the calling God has placed inside you. The world does not need perfect people. The world needs people whose hearts are surrendered to God's will. I speak this with holy urgency. Prepare your spirit. Prepare your mind. Prepare your heart. Something explosive is moving in the unseen realm. The bombshell of God is not rumor. It is not imagination. It is the divine reality of a living God who acts according to his eternal wisdom. The season of delay is ending for someone listening. The cycle of frustration is breaking. The chains of hopeless expectation are being shattered by the power, authority of God's promise. Stay faithful in prayer. Stay strong in obedience. Guard your heart from bitterness. Refuse to surrender your hope to the voices of doubt. The miracle you are waiting for may be closer than your tears can see. God is about to drop a bombshell of grace, of mercy, of restoration, and of unstoppable purpose into your life. And when it happens, you will know that only God could have done it. Feel it in your spirit. Believe it in your heart. Prepare your life for the explosion of divine glory that is coming. Because when God moves, nothing remains the same. Listen deeper to what the Spirit of Truth is speaking inside your heart tonight. Because the bombshell of God is not only about what is coming into your life, it is also about what is being awakened inside your soul. God is preparing not only circumstances, but transformation. There are people who are waiting for external miracles while forgetting that God first reshapes the vessel before releasing the greater blessing. When God wants to entrust you with something powerful, he strengthens your character, purifies your intention, and enlarges your spiritual endurance. The world celebrates sudden success, but God celebrates a heart that can carry blessing without losing humility. Many people pray for elevation, yet they are not prepared for the weight that elevation carries. When God promotes someone, responsibility walks alongside favor. The bombshell of God may therefore arrive as maturity, wisdom. Spiritual authority that allows you to stand firm when storms try to shake your foundation. Do not measure your value by how the world responds to you in your weakest season. There are moments when God hides greatness inside obscurity. History proves that many destinies were formed in places where human recognition was absent. The seed does not complain inside the soil because it understands that growth requires darkness before light. In the same way, your life may pass through unseen preparation where nobody praises your effort, but God is nurturing strength inside your spirit. The moment will come when that hidden seed breaks through the ground and rises toward the light of destiny. When that happens, people will be shocked, but heaven will not be surprised because God already ordained the timing. There are voices around you that may attempt to define your future using your past. Do not accept those limitations. God is not bound by your history. God is the author who can write a new chapter even when the world believes the story is finished. Your mistakes are not stronger than divine mercy. Your weaknesses are not stronger than God's ability to restore and rebuild. If your heart remains surrendered to truth and humility, God can transform broken experiences into testimony that becomes strength for others who are still suffering in silence. I want you to understand something powerful about spiritual endurance. The people who will witness the greatest manifestations of God are often the ones who refuse to abandon faith when answers are delayed. Faith is not only spoken in moments of victory, faith is proven inside valleys of uncertainty. When everything around you is shouting fear, faith becomes the quiet authority that says God is still in control. Do not allow emotional storms to redefine your spiritual certainty. Feelings are temporary. God's truth is eternal. Some of you are carrying dreams that seem too big for your current environment. That is not a mistake. That is evidence that God placed eternity-sized purpose inside your heart. The human world often tries to shrink divine vision into small expectations, but God's design for your life may exceed what your surroundings can comprehend. Do not apologize for the greatness God is nurturing inside you. Do not hide your calling because others cannot understand it. Walk in humility, but walk also in spiritual confidence, knowing that your life is held by God's will. There is a spiritual battle happening around every genuine destiny. Darkness resists light because light reveals truth. When God begins to elevate a life, opposition may increase because the enemy fears what God is building. But I want you to remember this with absolute spiritual courage. No darkness can extinguish the light that God ignites. Storms cannot overthrow the promise that God speaks. The bombshell of God may therefore arrive as victory over battles you have fought secretly for years. Do not waste your energy trying to prove your worth to people who do not understand your calling. Human approval is unstable. Today they may praise you, tomorrow they may forget you, but God's approval is unchanging. When God looks at a faithful heart, that heart becomes precious beyond worldly recognition. Seek alignment with God's purpose more than you seek applause from society. There are people who are tired of hoping because disappointment has visited them repeatedly. I speak life into your spirit. Do not allow past disappointments to become prophesy over your future. God is not limited by previous outcomes. If one path failed, it does not mean your destiny has ended. Sometimes God redirects you toward a blessing that is greater than the one you were originally chasing. Trust divine wisdom even when your mind cannot understand the reason behind certain closed doors. The bombshell of God may also manifest as unexpected restoration. Things that were broken can be rebuilt by divine grace. Relationships that were destroyed by misunderstanding may be healed by wisdom and humility if God decides it is part of your destiny. But remember this, restoration is always guided by God's will, not by emotional desperation. I am speaking to someone who feels spiritually thirsty. Your soul is searching for meaning beyond temporary success. You are realizing that material achievement alone cannot satisfy the hunger inside your spirit. That hunger is not weakness, it is a sign that God is drawing you closer to truth. When the heart becomes hungry for righteousness, God responds by filling that heart with peace that cannot be purchased by wealth. There is a future version of you that is stronger than the person you are today. God is shaping that future self through trials, patience, and spiritual discipline. Do not rush the process of becoming who God intends you to be. Great destiny is forged through consistency in faith, integrity in character, and perseverance in purpose. Many people misunderstand the way God works because they expect miracles to follow human logic. But divine power is not confined to human reasoning. God can bring solutions from places you never considered. God can use people you never expected. God can open opportunities in environments that once rejected you. If you feel forgotten by society, remember this: God's memory is perfect. Nothing done in faith is wasted. Every prayer spoken with sincerity is alive in the spiritual realm. Every sacrifice made in obedience carries eternal significance. The world may not record your struggle, but heaven records your faithfulness. Do not fear the unknown future. The future belongs to God. Your life is not wandering without direction. There is a divine purpose walking ahead of you, preparing the path you will walk tomorrow. When you surrender fear to God, courage begins to grow inside your heart like a living flame. The bombshell of God may arrive when you least expect it. It may arrive when you are simply continuing your daily. Turn life in faithfulness. It may arrive when you are praying quietly, working honestly, and trusting God without noise or pride. Sudden divine intervention often comes to those who remain faithful in ordinary moments. Hold your faith firmly. Do not allow anxiety to rewrite your destiny. Speak words of trust even when your surroundings feel unstable. Declare inside your heart that God's plan is greater than your confusion. Someone listening must understand this truth. Your life is not moving toward defeat. Your life is moving toward divine fulfillment. The storm you are facing is not your final destination. It is only a passing season inside a larger story that God is writing. The bombshell of God is coming. Not because you are perfect, but because God is merciful. Not because you are strong alone, but because God is sovereign. Not because you have solved every problem, but because God's purpose over your life is unstoppable. Stand firm in faith. Prepare your heart for glory you have not yet seen. Because when God releases His divine explosion of blessing, your life will testify that no human power can stop what God has ordained. And the world will know that your story was carried by the hand of God. Listen to this truth with a heart that is fully awake, because the revelation I am speaking over your life is not meant to entertain your ears, but to ignite your spirit. The bombshell of God is not merely about receiving something from the future, it is about stepping into a spiritual alignment where your life begins to resonate with the purpose God planted inside your soul before the foundation of your existence. Many people search for success in the visible world while ignoring the invisible preparation God is doing within them. But understand this, the greatest victories are not first fought in the physical realm, but in the unseen arena where faith is tested, purified, and strengthened. You must learn to walk in the dignity of divine calling even when the world does not understand your journey. There are seasons when God will ask you to move forward while carrying burdens that others cannot see. Do not complain during such seasons, because spiritual maturity is often built in solitude. When you are standing alone but walking with faith, you are not abandoned. You are being prepared by God for a responsibility that cannot be carried by weak character or shallow conviction. Some of you are waiting for a miracle that will shock your surroundings. I want you to know that God is not limited by the expectations of society. The world believes transformation must follow predictable steps, but God can change the course of your life in ways that defy human calculation. When God decides to release favor, doors that were never meant to open according to human planning can suddenly move as if invisible hands are pushing them from within. Pay attention to the small signs of divine movement around your life. The human heart often waits for dramatic manifestations, but sometimes begins his work through subtle shifts. You may notice new understanding inside your mind. You may feel a deeper desire to pursue truth. You may encounter opportunities that appear ordinary but carry hidden destiny. Do not ignore these signs, because God often hides great purpose inside what the world calls simple. I speak to the spirit of fear that sometimes tries to sit inside your thoughts. Fear is not from God, because God is the source of courage, peace, and clarity. When fear speaks, respond by strengthening your trust in God's sovereignty. Do not negotiate with fear. Do not give fear authority over your decisions. Remember that fear thrives when faith becomes silent, but fear loses power when faith declares truth. There are moments when your life may feel like it is passing through a desert season. During such times, do not measure God's presence by emotional comfort alone. The desert is sometimes the place where God teaches dependence on divine provision rather than human security. When everything around you seems dry, God may be training your heart to recognize spiritual water that flows from unseen sources. The bombshell of God may arrive as unexpected peace inside your troubled heart. You may still face external challenges, but inside your spirit, a supernatural calmness may begin to grow. That peace is not the result of solving every problem. That peace is a gift from God that tells you your life is under divine protection. Never underestimate the power of consistent faithfulness. Many people look for extraordinary moments, but God honors those who remain faithful in ordinary obedience. If you pray when nobody is watching, if you speak truth even when it is unpopular, then you will be a true friend to all. If you continue walking in righteousness when temptation invites you to compromise, then you are standing on the foundation where God releases lasting blessing. There is a destiny level that cannot be reached through human manipulation. No amount of political influence, social pressure, or economic strategy can replace the authority of God's will. When God chooses someone for a purpose, that life carries a spiritual momentum that cannot be stopped by worldly resistance. Some of you are about to experience a turning point that will change how people see your life. People who once doubted you may suddenly witness the manifestation of God's favor upon you. Not because you sought revenge, but because God reveals truth through time. Let your heart remain humble even when honor comes, because humility keeps your blessings stable. I want you to release bitterness from your heart. Bitterness is a spiritual poison that blocks the flow of divine blessing. If you are carrying anger, surrender it to God. If someone has hurt you, place that pain in the hands of God and continue walking forward. Do not allow emotional wounds to imprison your future. God's bombshell may also come as spiritual authority that allows you to influence others with wisdom and compassion. Some of you are called not only to receive blessing, but to become a channel through which others receive guidance, hope, and restoration. When God trusts someone with influence, that person must use it to elevate others, not to glorify the ego. Remember that your value does not increase because of material possession alone. Wealth without spiritual grounding can become a burden rather than a blessing. But when God combines prosperity with purpose, your life becomes a testimony of divine generosity and righteous stewardship. The future may appear uncertain to your human sight, but it is never uncertain to God. The path that seems confusing today is already known in divine knowledge. Trust that God is walking ahead of you, arranging connections, preparing answers, and protecting you from dangers you cannot perceive. There is a moment coming when your prayers will transition from desperate pleading into victorious declaration. Today you may pray because you are struggling, but tomorrow you may pray because you are celebrating what God has done. Do not lose faith in the waiting season, because waiting is sometimes the birthplace of greater revelation. I speak with spiritual urgency that you must guard your heart from discouragement. Surround yourself with truth that strengthens your faith. Listen to voices that remind you of God's power rather than voices that amplify despair. Your spiritual environment influences your inner strength. The bombshell of God is approaching in ways you to fully imagine. It may appear as a new opportunity that changes the direction of your life. It may appear as wisdom that solves problems you once believed were impossible to solve. It may appear as favor that opens paths where you previously experienced rejection. Stay rooted in faith even when life moves quickly around you. Do not allow success to make your heart arrogant. Do not allow hardship to make your heart hopeless. Walk steadily knowing that God is the ultimate authority over your existence. The world may change, economies may shift, and human systems may fail, but the purpose God has placed over your life will remain alive if you remain faithful. Hold on to this truth with unbreakable conviction. God is preparing something explosive for those who trust Him sincerely. Prepare your spirit for the moment when the unseen suddenly becomes visible, when divine favor breaks through the barriers of your struggle, and when your life becomes a testimony that only God could have orchestrated. Because the bombshell of God is coming, and when it arrives, your story will declare that power, mercy, and destiny belong to God alone. Feel this final truth settle deep inside your spirit, because everything I have spoken is leading you to one eternal conviction. God is sovereign over your life. The bombshell I have declared is not the promise of a human voice, but the assurance that God is moving according to divine wisdom that transcends your fear, your uncertainty, and your limitation. Do not walk away from this message carrying doubt in your heart. Walk forward knowing that your life is not an accident wandering in darkness, but a destiny carefully held by the hands of God. The season you are living in today is not your final chapter. Even if your situation feels heavy, even if your heart is tired from waiting, remember that God is writing a conclusion that will surprise the world. People may judge your beginning, but God decides your ending. People may misunderstand your struggle, but God understands the purpose behind every trial you endure. Nothing in your life is wasted when your heart remains connected to God's will. Do not allow despair to whisper that your future is lost. The voice of despair is a liar. God is faithful beyond human imagination. When the world tells you to give up, stand quietly in your spirit and trust that God's promise is stronger than human prediction. The miracle you are waiting for may arrive suddenly, like a thunder of grace breaking through the sky of your uncertainty. Be ready in your heart, because God's timing does not follow the fear-driven expectations of the human mind. I want you to leave this message with holy courage burning inside your soul. Walk tomorrow with peace, because your life is under divine protection. Work honestly, pray sincerely, love compassionately, and trust God without hesitation. Do not carry bitterness from the past into the future God is preparing for you. Release every wound into the hands of God and continue moving forward with spiritual dignity. There is a generation that will witness the testimony God is building through your life. Your story will speak of mercy, restoration, provision, and supernatural guidance. When the bombshell of God manifests in your life, you will not say that luck found you. You will say with tears of gratitude that God remembered you. Hold on to faith. Guard your heart. Live in obedience. Trust the unseen hand of God even when the road ahead looks uncertain. Because the greatest reality you must carry in your spirit is this: God is not finished with you. And very soon, when the explosion of divine purpose touches your life, you will stand in awe and declare that it was God alone who carried you from struggle into glory, from silence into testimony, and from waiting into fulfillment.